Hello, and welcome to the overview session on the new features in the 19.2 update for the Merchandising Cloud services. The first new feature in this release is integration of merchandising with the market-leading collaboration tool Slack in the item and purchase order workflows. With this feature turned on, the contextual area of an enabled screen shows the related conversations and messages for the business record being maintained. Users can create a new conversation, view messages, refresh the conversation to get the latest messages, and post messages and replies. They can also add or remove members from a conversation and view documents that have been uploaded to Slack. The messages create a channel in Slack that can also be viewed in the Slack application for added flexibility. There were also two dashboard report updates in this release. First, there was an update to the inactive item location report in merchandising, which is found in the Data Steward dashboard and highlights item location combinations that appear inactive due to lack of sales or inventory activity. Previously, the report supported allowing a data steward the ability to mark these item location combinations as delete. However, with this update, users will also be able to choose other item location statuses, such as inactive and discontinued. Also, in the sales audit dashboard, the overshort report was updated to leverage two thresholds to determine how the data should be displayed in the report. Only those overages that exceed the thresholds will be displayed in the report. This helps to keep the auditor focused on larger, higher priority exceptions. The two new thresholds have been added to the options screen in Sales Audit for configuration. There were also some updates to how merchandising and sales audit post to the general ledger. First is the addition of clearing accounts. In merchandising, a cross-reference is held for subclass location transaction combinations to determine how to map these combinations to accounts in the general ledger. However, if there are any missing mappings found during the posting process, an error is raised. This can occur when posting daily or only once per month. These errors must be resolved in order to complete the posting process, which can be especially problematic at the end of the month when errors need to be corrected prior to the month closing. To help mitigate these issues, this merchandising update includes the ability to define clearing accounts for each set of books. These clearing accounts will be used for any combinations that do not have a defined mapping during GL postings to avoid errors. A notification is also raised when the transactions are posted to the clearing account so that finance managers are alerted to add the missing mappings. This will help ensure that they are properly set up for the next period and so that the postings can be reclassified from the clearing accounts in the GL. Next, in Sales Audit, a new system option has been added that allows you to determine how many days after the last day of a fiscal month you want to allow transactions that occurred in the previous month to still be posted to the previous month. This delay allows time for clearing of any late posting transactions, resolving audit issues that occurred on the last day of the month, and correcting any totals that may have been raised in error in a previous day's posting related to a missing general ledger reference mapping prior to the month close in the general ledger. Lastly, an update was made in Sales Audit to map the business date to a general ledger reference field. Previously for Sales Audit, if a total posts to the general ledger late, even considering the new system option noted, only the accounting date was sent to the general ledger, which is the first day of an open month for transactions posting late after the previous month has closed. This means that there is no visibility to the actual business date in the general ledger when it is posted. To allow for the business date visibility in the general ledger for such cases, an enhancement in this release will post the business date in a reference field in the staging table in Merchandising and Sales Audit, which will be mapped to the Oracle Retail Financials integration to a reference field in the general ledger for all totals, even those that do not post late. The next new feature in Sales Audit was the addition of flexible attributes. Sales audit has always had flexibility to support retailers defining attributes at different levels of a transaction by transaction type through the use of reference fields. These could then be used to create rules or totals for exporting to other solutions. However, to better support configuration and remove limitations on the number of reference fields that can be defined, a new feature has been introduced to support adding unlimited custom attributes to all levels of the transaction. This feature will work similar to how the previously existing customer attributes have worked, where you are able to define attributes in a subnode for that transaction component as needed. Like reference fields, these will also be able to be used in totals and rules. The reference fields will also still remain available as in previous releases. This update also features a number of smaller enhancements that were meant to improve usability in some key areas of sales audit. These include the ability to define by store the starting and ending transaction numbers, which prevents errors when auditing a store related to a transaction gap caused by restarting the transaction sequence in a store. The ability to define both the transaction level item and reference item when creating or editing a transaction. Added new columns in the store day summary error list to display the register number, external transaction number, and transaction sequence number. The ability to search using a range of dates in tender summary, as well as new columns added in tender summary results for register and business day. The ability to filter the GL cross-reference download by store and total, and the usage of the merchandising store table as a valid data source for defining audit rules and totals. There were also some updates in merchandising for flex attributes. First was related to CFAS views usage in the data access schema when creating custom flex attributes in merchandising. Part of the definition is to indicate the name of a view at the group set level and to add column names for that view at the attribute level. This makes it easier to build reports and query the flex attributes. However, previously the only access to that view was in the direct database queries within merchandising, such as in BI Publisher reports or using Apex Data Viewer, as the views themselves cannot be replicated to the data access schema. However, to better enable these views to be used in the data access schema for custom reporting or other purposes, a new script has been made available to rebuild these views in the replicated schema. Another enhancement related to flex attributes was the addition of audit fields. This enhancement was primarily made to support the integration used by Retail Insights, but may also be useful in monitoring updates for other reporting or integration purposes as well. These have been added to all of CFAS extension tables. A number of updates were also made in this release to the system options in merchandising. Most of these updates were to remove obsolete system options from the UI and to enable certain options to provide more flexibility in managing the system configuration going forward. The updates impacted both the system options and report option UIs. Any changes to these newly enabled system options would apply for any new entities or transactions going forward only. More details on the updated system options can be found in the release readiness documentation for these updates. However, there is one set of system options that were enabled that have a slightly larger impact, which is those used for data filtering. If the data filtering system option is changed from yes to no, then the filtering that limits items, locations, or hierarchy levels from being displayed to users based on data filters defined will no longer be applied. The hierarchy level system options will also be cleared from each filterable entity for both merchandising and pricing, and the hierarchy values associated with these entities will be removed, making them available for use by all users. For example, if you had configured location traits to be filtered by the organization hierarchy level of area, the organization hierarchy level will be cleared, and the areas associated with all location traits will be removed. However, if you had configured user groups by organizational or merchandise hierarchies using the filter group spreadsheet upload, these will remain. If the data filtering system option is changed from no to yes, you will be required to set a hierarchy level for each of the system option entities that support filtering in both merchandising and pricing. You will then need to define the specific hierarchies associated for each of these entities in order to filter those by hierarchy levels. Additionally, you will need to define the hierarchies to which your users will have access if not already configured. Several updates were made to the definition of duties and privileges with this release. In merchandising, changes include privileges and duties for editing and viewing item-level tax information, as well as for editing and viewing supplier org unit, a new duty for asynchronous jobs, and there were also updates to base duty definitions for several entities, including intercompany transfers, RTVs, and product restrictions, as well as updates to the default role mappings for the base roles. For sales audit, updates include a new privilege and duty for accessing the dashboard and a new duty for accessing the drill back and drill forward reports. For invoice matching, a new document upload duty was created for the existing upload documents privilege. This duty was then mapped to the appropriate roles instead of directly mapping the privilege to the roles. For pricing, the price changes pending approval dashboard report is now accessible by users with the maintain price changes privilege instead of just the approved price change privilege. Likewise, the clearances pending approval report is now accessible by users. Several new features will be added to the merchandising conversion tool with this release. These updates add new functionality to the tool as well as some operational improvements. The key enhancements include new conversions for unavailable inventory by status, general ledger accounts, and general ledger cross-references. A new process to support creating weekly and monthly stock ledger records with calculated opening stock values based on the inventory conversion. And a new UI titled Task Execution Engine, which allows you to execute database-level tasks in the conversion environment from the UI, including purging staging tables, disabling and enabling table triggers, gathering statistics, and backing up tables. There were also a few integration updates in this release. First, a new web service was added to allow you to upload obligations received from your import suppliers and partners, rather than just manually inputting them in the UI. All obligation levels that are supported in the UI will be supported in this service. A new REST service was also added to allow external systems to query merchandising to determine if it is the end of the week. The primary use case for adding this service was for use by the batch scheduler called Process Orchestration and Monitoring, or POM, to determine whether to run certain end-of-week jobs. But it can also be called by other external solutions. An update has been made to the existing operation in the merchandising common services for VDate to support returning both the date and long date formats for the current virtual date as part of the response. Previously, it had supported only returning the date format. In a previous release, fields were added in the item location publication RIB API in merchandising for calculation basis and purchase rate. However, no data was being communicated in these fields. As of this release, the values defined at the item location level will be published in the message. Additionally, the purchase type in this message previously was derived from the department level value. This is now being published as the value defined at the item location level. These fields are relevant for consignment and concession items. Lastly, a modification was made to include the order line number in the Export to Oracle Retail Store Inventory and Operations Cloud Service, or SIOX, when the updates being sent are related to a customer order. SIOX processing will accept both versions of this export, both with and without the new field included. Therefore, no change should be required to SIOX in order to start using this feature. A new configuration process was created to support the upload of larger data sets via REST service calls. As part of introducing this feature, you will be able to configure the number of threads and chunk size for the services that support this functionality. You can update the configuration using the spreadsheet download upload feature in merchandising through the REST services data load configuration template. Note that this is currently supported only for the new obligation upload REST service. For more details, see the merchandising implementation guide. With this update, older versions of the data conversion batch jobs that were used prior to the creation of the data conversion tool have been removed from the batch scheduler and will be deprecated in a future release. These jobs are no longer relevant with the introduction of the data conversion tool. And lastly, there has been a change to the URLs used by solutions associated with merchandising cloud services, as well as for some key merchandising functions. The updated URLs impacted are for access to the data conversion tool, BI Publisher, Retail Home, the Merchandising and Sales Audit REST services, and Merchandising, Sales Audit, and Invoice Matching mobile applications. Details on the updated URLs can be found in the release readiness documentation and in the Merchandising Service Administrator action list. This concludes the overview of the 19.2 Merchandising Cloud Services update.